now I'm happy to introduce Jennifer Tinsley. Jennifer is a professional planner with the Lower Savannah Council of Governments, and she's here to talk about a planning effort she helped lead that involved collaboration among many partners, including 6 municipalities in rural Orangeburg County. Welcome, Jennifer.
Let's be brutally honest with each other. You're here for Ed. I know that. I know the opening band. I'm going to get my technical assistance team here. Thanks. Okay. All right. But hopefully you'll find something interesting in this. And Ed and I have spent the last couple of days with each other. We were in Santee in my neck of the woods yesterday doing this similar presentation to the Low Country. And so I know you're in for a good treat when you hear it. So let's talk about Orangeburg County a little bit. We're in the Low Country and in the Lower Savannah Council of Governments where I work. And up here you've got the Appalachian COG, which is our counterpart, which I know the mayor is probably working with those CDBG grants that you mentioned and the water and the sewer that you're doing. So we're a great resource at the COG. So I have to push for our little COGs who aren't widely known, but do a lot behind the scenes. Lower Savannah Council of Governments has 6 counties in a very rural, low country region. We have Aiken, Allendale, Bamberg, Barnwell, Calhoun, and Orangeburg counties in alphabetical order. Thank you. In our region, and it's one of the larger COGs geographically, but we have a very rural area, so somewhat quite different from the upstate, both in geography and in population and in size. And I was trying to think, 10 at the top, what would be a comparable for the Low Country, like 10 down below, 10 underneath, or, I don't know, none of it sounded good, so maybe you guys can help me with that later. But the project I want to talk to you about today is a really exciting project that we did in rural Orangeburg County, in the eastern end of Orangeburg County. You've got a list of our activities here at the COG. Your Appalachian, your upstate COG and the other COGs around here also do similar planning activities, and we are kind of the technical assistants for our counties, and we're happy to assist our counties in any way we can. Eastern Orangeburg County, again, is a very rural community, and Orangeburg County has 17 municipalities. Now think about that. That is a lot of towns to work with in a very rural and very large county. And kudos to them. They have a very strong political system in place. They have a great county administrator who has a great relationship with all of those communities within Orangeburg County. We specifically worked with them in the eastern end of the county. We are continuing to work with them in the entire county in the comprehensive planning process, which I'll go into a little bit later. But with this project that started about 6 years ago, began kind of with a seed from their Economic Development Administration then, who works very closely with the county. They're in the Midlands, kind of towards the low country region. They're a rural community with a stagnant population. They had 1% growth rate in the last census, so pretty rural, pretty stagnant as far as growth population. And the Economic Development Partnership, again, was a strong entity in fueling this project, as well as working with the county and us in this project and in other projects. The Economic Development Administration had already located a target area for growth, for industry. It's called the Global Logistics Triangle, and it's in the I-95, I-26, and US 301 corridor. So it's kind of identified with geography and not really with planning. And no slight on economic developers, but we planners like to kind of stick our noses in and say, how'd you get that area there? Maybe we can help you with planning and conserving some of those more sensitive areas within that industrial zone that you're identifying. The county is relatively new to comprehensive planning. In more urban areas, you're more familiar with the comprehensive planning and zoning process, but in a large county like this, it was kind of a shock to a lot of the citizens to have zoning come on board, even though it wasn't a very strong or regulatory ordinance. They adopted it in 2002 and then amended it in 2007, but it's very bare bones, very minimum. They had a lot of backlash when they first introduced zoning to the county. So as a result of that backlash, they have very low standards and a very mild ordinance. And the opinion of many planners at least. They did have a lot of public involvement within that first zoning ordinance. So it was actually, because of some of the outcry and the citizen protesting, they did take out some designated cultural and natural areas that they wanted to preserve out of that initial zoning ordinance. So we're working with them to try to build that consensus with the citizens to get some of those tools back in place, which I'll discuss later. Natural amenities, again, in this defined global logistics triangle that was identified for industrial prospects and expansion, also contained Lake Marion, which is the largest lake in South Carolina, the Four-Hole Swamp watershed, and the Edisto River, which is the longest blackwater river in the United States. So just a few natural resources that we wanted to look into protecting and not and have sustainable growth around those, but utilize these natural resources for other efforts such as ecotourism. The Lake Marion Regional Water System is also a new partnership with many of the counties in the Low Country. Orangeburg County was key in this being the Lake Marion is partially in Orangeburg County, and did a lot of the engineering for distribution lines around 2000, 2005 in that area, and then they ended up getting about $40 million in ERA grants during the recession to expand those water distribution lines. So it was expanding widely with little planning, so that's when we decided to partner with Orangeburg County to develop a more sustainable plan for growth for the county. As I mentioned, we do have I-95, and I'll talk a little bit about the changes that are going on with I-95, some major changes with DOT and Tiger projects there, so we'll discuss that in a little bit, part of the growth that's going on. The community was very involved in our sustainability plan from the beginning. We actually applied for a community development block grant, so I'm glad the mayor mentioned those. They do fund some studies, and we had to ask many times, and we had to knock on a lot of doors, but we did end up getting a $250,000 community development block grant that the county matched at 10% to do the study, and we went through a procurement process and hired Clarion Consulting Group to actually undertake the study and the toolbox that we are working on now, which I'll get into. But the community was an essential part of the study, as it should be with any kind of planning study. We had unusually active citizens in this region. There were some discussions of an inland port on Lake Marion where they would actually bring barges on the lake. And this is an area of resort community and golf courses. And we have a lot of relatively low-cost, inexpensive land right on a beautiful lake where a lot of people were moving to and investing in, and did not take kindly to the idea of having barges on their fishing ground. So that was nixed, and you know, eventually. But it brought out a lot of public resentment about having any kind of growth in the area. So it sort of set the tone for future development to have a negative kind of feel to it, a negative vibe to it, and some interest groups came together and banded together to discuss the growth of that. So we invited them to our meetings, and we sat down and met with them, and I think that was an important part on the onset. But what is the saying? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Some of these groups were just vehemently opposed to any kind of growth, and we said, where do you want to meet? We'll sit down and meet with you. And we did, and we sat down and talked to them and said, listen, we're out for your interest, and we are, we're not trying to fight you, and let us know what you want, and we will work to get that. And, eventually some things happened, and, the articles in the paper stopped appearing, so hopefully that was, that set a better tone for working with those types of groups. The local government, invested a lot in economic development infrastructure, as I spoke before. They do have a 1% local option tax for a lot of economic development projects, a lot of water sewer projects that they were utilizing. And then again, Lake Marion was seeing a lot of the population growth in the county as a resort community. However, the unemployment rate in Orangeburg County is 11.3%. That's 2014 numbers, as compared to South Carolina, 6.2%. So you're still seeing a lot of disparity in income and jobs from some of the residents who come in from other areas and live on the lake, as opposed to long-time residents of the area. Okay, some of the project background for the sustainability study. As I spoke before, it started out with an inland port idea that was nixed. The Charleston port is only 70 miles from Santee, so that's where the idea of an inland port came into being. But then it developed with a further industrial interest into a logistics and transportation hub. The area is agricultural. The land use is very agrarian. There's crop and super sod, which is the largest sod farm, which is kind of cool to see these like miles and miles and miles of lawn in the area. But that's a major industry in Orangeburg County. And then in 2007, the JASA Economic Zones World purchased 1,300 acres along right in the middle of I-95 at the interchange at US 301, right in the town of Santee. So that was a major economic investment that was that they worked with the Economic Development Authority of Orangeburg County to invest in, and the county was heavily invested in that as well. Along the same time, and this is kind of in the throes of our study area, this in 2011, a $41 million upgrade for a full access interchange at I-95 was happening, and that was being programmed through SCDOT, through the COGS Guide Share program, and also through a Tiger grant that was funded, as well as county funding, and the word we don't hear anymore, earmark funding from our legislature. So that was being done. That I-95 currently, or it's almost under construction. It's under construction. It's almost complete. But right now it had just a partial interchange, and it's being constructed into a full diamond interchange for better access. The partial interchange caused a lot of bottlenecks, and it was right in the middle of the town of Santee. If you've ever driven, got off of that exit, it's very confusing, and you kind of are plopped down into the middle of this town of 600 people. So it was, we'll hopefully, have a lot more fluid movement on the interchange with the construction of that. The area that the Economic Zones World purchased had a 20-year build-out schedule. However, it was purchased during the recession, right before the recession, so it slowed down a bit. Maybe it's a year build-out schedule, but it is still being heavily perceived by logistics and transportation companies, and they do have some construction going on right now. So the COG and the county wanted to ensure that this growth would not harm their natural and cultural resources, and that it would improve the quality of life for these small towns. There are 6 small towns in the study, and they're very small towns. Like I said, Santee is kind of right in the middle of it, but there were 5 other towns that we also included in the study for proximity to this industrial growth. And we wanted to set smart growth standards. We kind of didn't say the words smart growth and sustainability, those kind of planner words, and we wanted to make sure that we could speak a common language. So smart growth wasn't thrown around a lot, but we wanted to invest in the community, and we wanted the community to know that we were there to look out for their best interests. Okay, some of the regional planning issues that we faced, like I said before, the global logistics triangle was not really studied for social, cultural, or environmental sensitivities. It was identified by highways with little thought to natural and cultural resources. Again, no slight to economic developers, but I think if they had a lot more planners on their staff, then we would have maybe have fewer studies to do. But it was definitely something that they were concerned about as well, and are still concerned about too. Priority investment areas, they were required by South Carolina planning legislation to be in the comprehensive planning process. The Orangeburg counties had some minimal priority investment area mentioning in their comprehensive plan, but they met the minimum requirements, but we felt that they needed further development, as did they. And then the progressive approach by the county with regard to infrastructure, as I mentioned before, they had $40 million plus in USDA era funding with water and sewer projects, and getting those out to some of these communities, these 6 municipalities that I spoke of. And then the identity of the municipalities. We had 6 that we were working with, and they all had their unique identifying qualities and their unique communities, and we wanted to make sure that those were preserved and that we met the needs of each one of those. The full diamond interchange project on 95 definitely is changing the footprint of the area, so we wanted to make sure that we took that into consideration as well. And then, like I mentioned, the inland port proposal, that still had some negative feedback from the residents and just kind of set a bad tone at the beginning of the project. meant that we had a lot of meetings. We sat down with a lot of the citizens and discussed this with them and told them that this is not what we're doing, and this is, we're trying to allay your fears, and we're trying to make a better quality of life for the citizens here. The study also, to try to market it, it's a showcase for the partners. We had many partners in this study. We had, of course, the COG in the county, the Orangeburg County Development Commission, and SCDOT was heavily involved because, not just because of the I-95 project, we had some other projects going on, some corridor projects. We were working on a bicycle and pedestrian study at the time, so they were heavily involved in that and developed design guidelines for bicycle and pedestrian projects. And so this all kind of intertwined with what we were doing. So great partnerships with some of these groups, and of course all the mayors of the communities all showed up to all the meetings, and we had some really good productive workshops. There's a high respect in the county for citizen values, which we love to see. It's not in every county, but the county does respect the citizens, and the leaders in the county were really engaged with the public. And even in such a wide area, the citizens were very interactive for county projects. And in the town of Santee, which I mentioned has 600 residents, we had a workshop just to let them know, what we're doing and in the, kind of the time frame of the study. We had over 100 citizens show up. And I'm sure they weren't all from Santee, but that's a lot, and this is a great outfit today for a very rural area like that. We were so pleased that we had so many citizens come out, and we stayed there, I think, 2 hours after it ended, just talking with people. So that was really, really fantastic. Another key component of the study, and this is really key to get political buy-in, was that we included a fiscal impact analysis for the county. If you want councilmen to come to your meetings, just talk to them about money and a budget and their CIP and what this growth is going to do to that. Because when you start talking about money and budgets, they come to meetings. And we had a really active county and county council, and they did come to the meetings, but this really opened their ears, and this ensured buy-in for future implementation of tools and regulations that we were asking the county to do. This all tied in with their fiscal impact study. We kind of had a background, and this is why we did this, is to protect your budget and to make sure that you have fiscally responsible decisions in the future. So we are now working with the Toolbox Strategies, and when we hired Clarion Associates to do this study, we said we want a good study, but we don't want to just look at a bunch of census figures. We want something we can implement, because we're planners and we develop regulations, and Ed is going to talk to you about carrots and sticks, and work more with sticks than carrots, but it's a necessity. And I'm just going to say the word tools and toolbox is just a better word for regulations and land use regulations. We just try to stay away from those words because of what we had gone through with the county and their initial zoning ordinance. But that's ultimately what it is to get public and political buy-in, is to approach the ultimate goal, and which is some land use controls for these sensitive areas as a tool for sustainability, and ease the path towards implementing tougher zoning regulations. Some of the lessons we learned: plan. Of course, I'm a planner, so I'm going to tell you the plan. But to invest in a comprehensive planning effort and to make a long-term fiscal impact is an important piece. Again, the fiscal impact study was a relatively small part of the entire sustainability study, but it was the one that the county council looked at the longest, and it was the one that helped them best plan for their county for the future. They have taken that, and they're now, without ever having a CIP, they're developing a 10-year CIP, and they're budgeting for a long-term sustainable future for the county, which is great. Land use tools are the final step in the planning process. Make sure all your partners have a say in the development of these tools. Don't just make it from the planners. Make it a part of your community. Make it a part of your process. Expect some outcry. We did initially, but the more you meet with folks and talk to them, the more they'll appreciate the time that you spend with them. Sit down face to face, talk to these community activists. As I spoke before, don't let misunderstandings boil over and lead to community backlash. Let them know that their interests are being considered. And you can't do it all in-house. We're a a large cog geographically, but small in staff, as most cogs are, so we knew that we had to hire some consultants, and they can be your friend, but choose wisely. And again, this was a showpiece study for our funding partners, and that's important. And you know, with South Carolina Department of Commerce managing the CDBG program, the Community Development Block Grant Program, they talk about this project all the time, and they're proud of it. So, you know, get them on board with that, and give them a project that they can be proud of. And SCDOT is also, you know, has really stepped up and brought a lot of community involvement, more than they normally do in any typical project. Because of that, the county impact, I stress the fiscal impact analysis. It determined their tax structure and their investment priorities. So this also tied in with the comprehensive plan. And part of the toolbox now, we are working with the county on that comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance for that area for the entire county. But that involved county council every step of the way, and it gave them some valuable long-term budgeting goals. And ultimately, I just want to stress that working with the toolbox, getting early public and political buy-in from local and state and the community, and approaching the ultimate goal as a tool for sustainability really ease the path towards implementing what is going to end up being a tougher zoning regulations, to be honest with you. And don't make it a secret that that's your goal, is to if you want to have what we're presenting this to you in the study, you're going to have to implement some of these tougher strategies. So that being said, and that being open along the transparent along the whole pathway, I think is really important as well. Okay, and that's my contact information. So I'm happy to